These are good days. Everything is going good with everything, 'cause these are good days. It's going good with everything, it's going good with everything. And I know that because these are good days. Everything is going good with everything, 'cause these are good days. Good days. Good days.
Welcome to These Are Good Days with Leanne Miller.
And Matt Barris.
Well, Matt, Merry Christmas.
This is Christmas Day.
Christmas Day.
And we just have a great little episode in our back pocket.
Yes, we do.
You know, I love Christmas. We've talked about this the last couple weeks,
Yes.
but I love Christmas.
I know you
It's
do.
such a fun time, but I have a confession.
Okay.
I couldn't do it without my wife.
Oh.
She is currently
Wrapping
all the presents. It's just busy. It's busy, but it's good. It's
yes,
fun.
very good.
We have
very
3
fun.
kids, so when you have kids, if you've had kids, you still have kids.
Yes,
but
I
it's
do.
just different.
Well,
but when you have little kids, you feel like you're making Christmas magic, and you're like,
yeah. And kids do love to unwrap things.
they do.
As our kids got older, I just, I handed them the Dick's bag.
What?
The Dick's bag, like the whatever bag, GameStop, whatever. I just handed them the bag.
Okay.
I did.
That's so funny.
As they got older,
You're
I
like,
just
"Here you
stopped.
go."
I stopped wrapping. I'm like, I'm tired.
Yeah, you're tired. You
Yeah.
wrapped. You did your wrapping. Listen, here's what I keep saying.
Okay.
First of all, your Dickens Village. I'm
I
still
know,
not
it's
over
still
it.
lingering in your mind.
I'm
isn't
not
it?
over it.
Yeah.
And the train that has smoke.
Yes.
But once those little baby
Yeah,
grandkids
I
come,
know,
I
I
feel
know,
like
you're
your
right.
Christmas is going to change.
It's going to change. It's already
gonna
changed.
change.
It's already changed. You
Yeah.
know it's already changed since you've known me.
Oh, 100%.
And I was talking to somebody the other day that lives near me, and he said, "Oh, you're the house with all the white Christmas lights." And I'm
That's
like,
you.
"Oh, yeah, that is so much.
That's you. You're getting a reputation
Yeah,
as
yeah,
Miss
yeah,
Christmas
that-
in Worcester.
I don't think I'd go that far. What's your good
You're
day?
getting there. My good day is all the days. It is December 25th, and in the past week, people have come into town. Our friends Emma and Adrian, who live in New York City.
You moved into your new
are in
building
town.
at school?
Yeah, we moved. If you're friends with me in the socials, we moved into a new building at school,
which is
a huge
amazing.
building. It's beautiful.
So my tax dollars at work.
No, thank you for voting. My sister and her husband and their kids from South Carolina came,
yes.
and there was like a fresh blanket of snow their first day here, which was so great. Luca celebrated his birthday. We took a bunch of kids to laser tag. It felt like 1999.
He's 11.
I know, he's 11.
I remember when he was born.
I know, that little boy. And so we've just been doing all the Christmas things, and it's all running together, and it's so fun. I'm
Yes.
eating Christmas cookies and Ben Hagee's chocolates for breakfast.
Yes.
Ben Hagee's,
If
you are listening.
I was just there the other
We
day.
do love Ben Hagee's chocolates as well.
Oh, I was just there. Listen, as far as my good days, I don't want to talk about it. I
Oh. Is something happening?
I just don't.
Why?
I don't have a full good day since
I
our
don't
last
either.
podcast.
Mine's
I really
just
don't.
little moments.
And I'm like, I would like to say that my shopping day, I went shopping and I texted you. I wanted that to be my good day. Like in my mind, I was like, oh, this could be
I'm
my-
actually offended. Since our last podcast, we had a good day together that you could choose from. We went and saw a movie together with Mallory and Mel and
but
our friend Abby.
Again, that wasn't the whole. That wasn't the whole day.
Wasn't the whole day.
I will say that was my good moment. That was my good pocket of time. We went to Wicked. It was so fun. I can
was so
already
good.
tell that Abby, I would be friends with her.
Oh yeah, you would love
She's
her.
funny, witty, fat. I've decided something about myself this year. I love
Our friends.
That's true. I love fast-witted people.
Yes.
People that are witty quickly.
Right.
Like they're like, you say something and they say something and you're like, oh, that's funny. I
Yeah.
love that. And she is one of those people.
Yeah.
I can tell she's just got quick
We brought
wit.
along our friend Nurse Abby from school
Nurse
to
Abby.
watch Wicked
we've
with
already
us.
got a name for her, Nurse
That's
Abby.
what we everybody at school
Is
calls
she
her
the
Nurse
school
Abby.
nurse?
Yeah, she's the
Oh,
RN in
okay,
our
all right,
district.
all right.
So we brought Nurse Abby with us.
And our
we saw
friend Mel.
Wicked. And our friend Mel.
Yeah.
And Mallory and us.
It was
the
so.
five
It
of
was
us
so
went.
good, and Wicked was so good. I want to see it again.
We are.
Feel,
We're already planning. We're
Yeah.
actually taking our kids.
Yeah, I feel like
if you
there's
have opinions about kids seeing Wickeds, do not come into my DM.
Wickeds.
Wicked.
Wickeds plural.
Wickeds, the Wickeds. if you have an opinion about our children seeing it, our kids love musicals. They love musical theater
Yes.
kind of thing. So we're going. So
Well, and what I was going to say was, I planned the shopping day by myself, and I'm like, this is going to be a good day. It was not.
why?
I hated it.
Was it that really rainy day?
I hated every second of it. It was rainy. It was so crowded. The traffic. I went to Canton, Ohio, which is the home of the Football Hall of
Canton,
Fame.
if you are listening, we need a little more infrastructure.
we need
We need
better
more lanes.
infrastructure. Oh my word!
I
It was
know.
a zoo.
It's wild up
It
there.
was a zoo. I was like, get me home.
Get me to Worcester.
now. In fact, I stood in the middle of Dick's and started ordering things on Amazon.
You sure are bringing up Dick's a lot.
Dick's, if you are
No,
listening.
I'm not calling out Dick's. I don't want Dick's to listen to me
Why?
because it just feels funny.
It feels it feels sexual.
Sexual.
All right, listen.
Well,
we've talked
I
about.
also had a shopping day that I was like, I told Mallory, okay, I'm gonna go do a little bit of running around, and it was like rainy and wet and
yeah,
cold,
no.
and like, those days I don't want to run in and out of the car.
No, listen, this is why Amazon is making $1 billion.
Listen, if there's someone I want to talk to, Amazon, if you are listening, Jeff, if someone knows Jeff, please send him the link to our podcast because I would love to talk about a sponsorship with Jeff Bezos.
Yes, because let me just tell you, I stood in the middle of Dick's and ordered Christmas presents because I
don't
was like,
blame you.
this is terrible.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
And it was not a pleasant experience. It was not a good day. And I was like, I thought this was going to be my good day.
But then we totally redeemed ourselves with Wicked.
we did.
Here's what I do need to talk about Wicked here for a second.
Okay, all right.
Because Wicked, I love musical theater.
I know you
I do not love movie musicals sometimes.
know.
Sometimes I get disappointed.
I know.
Sometimes I'm like, why did we pick the movie star and not the people that do it on Broadway eight times a week?
It was not disappointing.
I was not disappointed
me
at
either.
all.
I saw
what they added to the storyline was perfect.
And actually needed. I felt like I learned things. And I saw Wicked on Broadway in New York City twice.
Yeah.
And I feel like I learned things from this movie.
Agree. Like her childhood was a part of it. Some of her powers were a part of it.
Even the animals, I didn't really get that on Broadway.
The first
I didn't
time,
really
it was good.
understand it. Mhm.
And then the two main people were Cynthia Erivo, who is from Broadway.
Which I saw
her.
my first time seeing Wicked on Broadway. She was
nice.
Alphaba.
And then Ariana Grande, who is not necessarily a Broadway person, so
Wait.
I was hesitant.
Wait, did you name the person that originally did Alphaba on Broadway? Is that
Idina
who you did?
Menzel.
Yes, that's who I saw.
Oh, Idina Menzel was original.
Yes.
But Ariana Grande, I was hesitant because
Yeah, me
she's a
too.
pop star
Yeah,
where
right.
you're like, "Ugh, I
Can
don't know.
she act?
Can she?
Oh, yes.
She was incredible.
So good.
Incredible.
So
and
good.
so if you're not a Wicked fan, you might be a fan of the movie.
Listen,
I know people that have seen it 3 or 4 times
Listen,
already.
we have talked about Wicked and we have talked about Dick's, and we're getting ready to do an episode on Jesus.
Well, listen, that is
Here
literally
we
our
go.
life.
Here we go.
Hey, before we start
Yes,
talking about our topic today, you have an idea.
I do. I just feel I was this morning. I was in the shower and I was like, it would be so funny or enlightening if we would share and really prompt people
Yeah.
listening, to think about 2 things that you did in 2024 that you were not planning on. 2 habits, 2
Yeah.
things, and I have one funny one
Okay.
and one serious one. These are things that I developed in 2024 that were not on my list. They showed
Hit
up
me.
nowhere. They showed up nowhere.
Yeah.
The first one
On your bingo, I like when people say this was not on my
was
bingo
not on
card
my
for
bingo card.
2024.
I'm going to share the serious one first. You all probably know what I'm going to say because you've heard me talk about it. I started plugging my phone in the bathroom
yes.
away from the bedroom. I mean,
And it's been life changing for
yes,
you.
it
Is that
really-
fair to say?
Yeah,
Life
it really,
changing.
yeah, it really has helped me so much.
Well,
It's
your
helped me
husband is
sleep.
impressed with your sleep habits right now.
Yeah, I'm getting up earlier.
Yeah.
Every morning I'm getting up earlier.
Wild.
And I don't do any kind of scrolling in bed. It
Right.
just wasn't. I had learned, even though it felt like a treat.
Has the lack of scrolling affected magic time with Daryl? Was the phone
No.
in the way of your smooching?
No,
Okay, that's
not
good.
really. No, the phone was more in the way of shutting my brain down,
Gotcha.
like calming my brain down.
Gotcha.
And even when I wake up in the morning, I wake up just I don't know, less rushed or less with my brain running.
Yeah.
And sometimes I go downstairs and put her around and the phone is still plugged up in the bathroom.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing.
Well, can I say one more thing about
yes.
that? People, because you, for your business, if you want to call it that, spend quite a bit of time on Instagram, people probably think you have phone in hand all the time. You really don't.
No.
Like, you are not a phone addicted person. You're intentional with like, I'm going to post a couple stories. I'm going to put it down.
Yes.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
But
And then
you know,
and then I put it away.
and you know who else is like that? Carlos Whitaker.
Yeah, Carlos Whitaker's
That's
very much
impressive
like that.
to me about
Yeah.
Carlos.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Second thing, I've started a 2 scrub ritual, which means, listen, anybody over 50 is gonna
I don't know. What are we scrubbing?
anybody
Give
over
me some
50
context.
anybody over 50 is going to be like, yeah, you're right. When you get older, you start being more aware of smells of yourself.
I'm
And
uncomfortable.
So, no, don't be uncomfortable.
Okay.
So what I've started is I put plenty of soap on my loofah. I scrub my armpit, rinse it off, scrub it again. It's 2 scrub. I do a 2 scrub on the armpits because I don't want to smell stinky.
Yeah.
I don't want to smell BOE. I'm
No.
56.
We know.
And
We support it.
so I've started a 2 scrub. Those are my 2 things that were
Listen,
not on my bingo card.
I have. I would like to piggyback off of your 2 scrub ritual.
Okay.
Do you remember a couple months ago I brought up Panoxyl? I've been
Yes.
using Panoxyl on my armpits, and I like it.
Okay.
Panoxyl is a product. I follow some dermatologist on Instagram, and he said if you, I don't necessarily have this problem, but
Okay.
he said if you have sweaty armpits and sweaty feet, Panoxyl will help with that problem.
Panoxyl.
Listen,
If you are listening, the bell's on fire.
it is Panoxyl is. I got it on Amazon, and it's the highest. What's
Is it-
that?
so it's just for your-
salicylic acid.
Oh, so it's just for your pits and your feet?
Well, people, I think teenagers use it on their face to cut out like oil. Like if you have really oily skin, it cuts that out. But I've been using it in my armpits.
Let me just tell you, 2 scrub ritual. It works.
Yeah.
Get rid of any stinkiness, and you can just start fresh.
Yeah, that's great. I actually made a list while we were sitting here
Oh,
about
wow.
all the things I
Yeah,
didn't
okay.
think.
All right.
This is not our year in review. Maybe
No.
that should be our next one.
Maybe.
But 2 things. I'm just going to pick 2 for right now.
Okay.
Is the first one is I didn't expect to grow a beard. It
No.
just kind of happened.
You did not like it.
I know. Listen, women of a certain age
Okay.
have been saying things like, hey, I'm not trying to be awkward, but I really like your beard. And
Wow.
I'm like, Mallory
Mallory, get out the boxing gloves.
Barons. They're coming for me.
They
And
better
I don't
back
know
off.
if it's like I have like slight dimples.
Oh, yeah, okay.
If my slight dimples
All
are
right.
accentuated with
Okay,
the beard.
right, okay, maybe.
Or if it's like a pheromone thing
Yeah,
that I don't
I
know
don't
a lot
know.
about.
Yeah,
or if
I
it's
don't-
like a
yeah.
lumberjack fantasy. that
I-
I don't know. I don't understand it. But I'm like, okay, it's just hair on my face. I don't know.
Maybe they're visualizing you in your 2 tight jammies.
Okay, that's actually rude. I don't have 2 tight jammies on right now, but listen, we'll see. We'll see. We haven't opened. We do have to record before Christmas Day, so we'll have to see if I get some 2 tight jammies under the tree.
We'll have to see.
Here's another thing. I did not expect to get into 3D printing with my children.
Yeah, I didn't expect that either.
Me either. It caught me by surprise.
You look like a print shop here in your downstairs.
true.
There's a corner that looks like there's lots of things.
There's
being
filaments.
Yeah.
There's heated plates. We're making things. I took a
And I know Luca is loving it.
Loves it.
I know he's loving
Something I love about our area is we have some retired engineers and some people that have money that do things like teach kids how to use technology and printers.
Yes.
So Luca and Fitz and I took a 3D printer class that was a $200 class,
Okay.
but you came home with a $250 printer. Now that math ain't mathing. That math is not mathing.
That's awesome.
And so it's truly like a bunch of retired engineers that
That's
get
awesome.
together and teach people how to do some of these things. And they love it. And
Yeah.
we've been printing pencil cups and sculptures.
Listen, I've
and
always said you're
Christmas
techie. You
ornaments.
deny it, but you really are. You really do have a knack for it.
I can do it, but it brings me a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, you can't
so,
tell.
Yeah, well, that's great. Wellbutrin helps. Awesome. Well, those are my 2 things. It's
All right,
been a
there they
year.
are.
Awesome. Hey, well, we wanted to talk on this day. We knew this would drop on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And Christmas is an important day for us in our faith.
Yes.
And the time around Christmas, I don't know about you, but I do get really reflective.
Yes.
And really thoughtful
Yes.
about
And the whole Advent, the
Yes.
whole Advent thing.
our
There's so
church
many-
does Advent.
And there's
It's-
so many great pieces of literature out there on Advent. I'm reading Anne Voskamp's
I love
Advent,
hers.
and it's so good.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk a little bit about Jesus.
Yeah.
Because we haven't talked about him at length
No,
on our podcast.
not really. We've talked about our faith some, but we haven't
Yeah.
really talked about the person of Jesus. Now listen, we were discussing this topic,
Yeah.
and you said what?
I said it makes me a little nervous to talk about this.
Yeah, which let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah. I think for me, this kind of goes back to church hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Is I think people think that you have to talk about Jesus a certain,
A certain way, right?
And if it's not the way that they think it needs to be,
Then
that
it's wrong. Yeah.
And that there's a right way. I mean, this can go really deep. There's a right way to live versus a wrong way to live.
Yeah,
There's
right.
a right way to accept Jesus into your heart. There's a certain way you say it, like a
Yes,
magical
yes,
prayer,
yes.
versus not. And then
Right.
if you're not
Right,
actually
right.
saved.
And then you're graded on your spirituality.
100%.
Like your level of spiritualness
Right.
is up for judgment.
Well, if you've been around
Yeah.
These Are Good Days at any length of time, for any length of time, we do allude to Jesus, but we also allude to cigarettes.
Yes.
And we also, I mean, there's other things we talk about too.
I
So we're
did smoke a
humans.
cigarette in 2024.
That was not on my bingo card for you.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, that also, the amount of time we've spent talking about that was also not on my bingo card. So I think talking about Jesus at length, especially a whole podcast that has that focus, I've been thinking about it for a couple days because we decided to talk
Yeah.
about it, and it just brings me a little bit of, I'm not going to say anxiety, but just a little hesitation.
Yeah.
Because I don't know who's listening to this, and I don't know where everybody's come from or what their experience with Jesus is like.
Right.
But I think that's the beauty of Jesus,
Right.
is he meets you where you are.
Right.
And it's truly not as cookie cutter as
No.
we've been led to believe.
And listen, let's also think about the interactions Jesus had in the Bible that we have available to us to read.
Right.
So many of the interactions he had were with a cross section of people.
Absolutely.
Like people in way many different walks of life.
Yeah. Do you know the Cher song, Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves? It reminds me of that song. Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. You know that song?
No, I do not. But
How
I
do you not
probably,
know
I don't know. I need to play it on Spotify.
But that's like who
on my
Jesus
own.
hung out with.
Yeah,
Jesus
yeah,
hung out with the lowest of the low and kind of refuted the religious hypocrites.
Well, and when we say hang out, he basically his interactions
Right.
were with people that were very I don't know, unexpected.
Right.
And here's something I've been thinking about, and what I want to say is our son Joey, our youngest son Joey, was born on November 26th, 25 years ago. And when I think about that day, I just have little like screenshots in my mind, like little things that I remember. But I don't remember that day fully. I just remember, I remember certain things about that day. But it was 25 years ago. It feels long ago. It feels like my memory doesn't hold everything that the day held.
Right.
When we talk about Jesus and his birth, we weren't even there.
Right.
And it's been so long ago,
Right.
and there's a written account of it. So we have been brought up. We have been in a culture or in a society that has shown us pictures and plays and
Right.
church sermons that have painted a picture in our minds of what that day looked like. We don't, I mean, we know what we know from the written word.
Right. Right.
But I think we have glorified it so much, because when we think about Amish country, we think about the pockets of the little villages with all the barns and all the people. And,
Right.
and we think about the reality of a young man and a young woman coming into a town with the pregnant woman on the donkey looking for a place to stay.
Right.
It is not what we are telling today.
Right.
Like, we're telling this like just idyllic,
Right. Right.
kind of glorified story of it, when if we think about it in true reality, it was just these two kids looking for a place to
Right.
sleep, and this innkeeper being like, hey, well, I've got a stall in the barn. He wasn't thinking like, I am getting ready to
Right.
put
The
right.
Son of God
Yes,
is in
right,
my barn.
right.
Yeah, it wasn't
And
like that.
and also that's one thing I've been thinking is that, we just have this picture and we have these visuals that have been placed in our minds by so many other people along the
Right.
way, right? I've also been thinking about when I think of Jesus and when I think about what he is, and this is what I said to you when we talked about doing this episode. Like, who is Jesus in our day-to-day life?
Right,
Like, what is the reality of Jesus in our life? Not like this, not a storybook version,
Right.
not a from the pulpit version of big fancy church. Like, who is Jesus when we're on our boots on the ground
Right.
every day? Who is he? So who is he to you? Like, boots on the ground every day.
Yeah.
Like, what's it look like for you?
Yeah, well, I think for me, I can't talk about Jesus without talking about where it started for me. And so for me, where it started was in my home of origin. And so I was thinking about, I was really thinking about John 3:16, which I know is going to sound so simple, but isn't Jesus simple? Like, the concept of Jesus
Right,
should be simple.
right,
And I think we've
right,
overcomplicated
right.
it. John 3:16 is that verse that many people know, whether you have a religious background or upbringing or
Right,
not.
right.
But it's for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have eternal life. And I was raised clearly memorizing that verse as I have now. But as I've gotten older and as I've read around that, do you know what John 3:17 is? John 3:17 is,
no.
Jesus did not come into the world to condemn the
the world.
world.
But to
How
save
have-
it, right?
But to save
Yeah.
it, how have we missed that? And I think as a child, I was drawn to Jesus because I heard the story of him coming to earth, how much he loved us. And truthfully, what got me was that God the Father would send his son as a sacrifice. And I thought, man, my parents love me a lot. And I can't imagine allowing your child to leave your home to be a sacrifice for other people. But as I've gotten older, truthfully, if I'm really being gut honest, often some of my interactions with people portraying Jesus has a lot to do with condemnation. And the older I've gotten, the more tender I've gotten towards Jesus in that regard. And man, he was full of compassion. And for me, if I look at the thread of Jesus through my life into the day to day, often it has to do with crisis, which might not, listen, if my fears come true, that people could judge and say, oh man, you only lean on Jesus in moments of crisis. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that crisis is where I remember. If you look back at the year, you remember big stuff. So for me, I leverage Jesus so much in moments of crisis.
Yeah. Oh, right.
But also, I leverage Jesus in those tender, quiet moments where
Yes.
I'm like, hey, how should I respond in this moment?
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes for me, we've had some big stuff happen in my life. And so Jesus has been a source of comfort, a source of hope and guidance, a source of direction. And I think in the day to day, the teachings of Jesus and the way that he modeled how we treated people is really what affects my day to day. Like, I think something that
Like,
was
kind of like who you want to be.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think, it became a cultural phenomenon for a reason, but what would Jesus do?
Right.
That
right,
I
right.
like that. I know it became, people might think it's silly,
Right.
but the thought, what would Jesus do, is actually a great thought, because it's, how would Jesus treat people? What would he
Right.
say? In those situations where you're with someone that's challenging or you're in a tense situation, what would Jesus truly do to love that person? I think does guide my direction and my day to day.
I also think when it comes to looking at other people who are in a faith circle, I think a good litmus test, it's not judgment, but a good thing to observe is, what's their life like?
Right.
Like how do they love people? How do they go about their interactions with others? Like,
Right.
how do they truly treat the people closest to them? Or
Right.
how do they treat the waiter at a restaurant or the person bagging their groceries? Like,
Right.
because I do think those things are what what the Bible calls fruit. You know, I think
100%.
you know a good tree bears good fruit, and
Right.
a bad tree can't bear good fruit. So
Right.
I do think that those are things we can observe. For me in my day to day, I was thinking about this. I was like, okay, who is Jesus in my day to day? And I think for me, it's like I don't want to call it a friendship because that seems so basic, but I do feel like it's a relationship where I'm like, hey, do you see what's happening? Do you see what's happening with our life? Do you see what decisions are being made around us or pertaining to us, and will you help us?
Yeah.
Like it, and as far as Jesus in crisis, I feel like that's when my life changed, is with crisis, with my relationship. It makes me emotional. And there was some guilt and shame I needed to get over with that, because I was like, here I am saying, help me, when I feel like I haven't really made you a priority.
Right.
So after that, and that was during a time when we went through a really hard time with my family. After that, after the prayer closet, and after, you know, feeling I was becoming super close with the Lord, I started feeling like it was a daily, daily check-in, and then when really great things started happening, we had some people speak some awesome stuff. That's another thing. When you interact with people who are prophetic, or if you're listening and you're not sure what that word is, it's like when people have this like gifting where they see something in your life on the spiritual side of things, and they say, I feel like the Lord wants me to tell you this.
Right.
We had people speak those things over us that really did come true.
Right.
And when they started coming true, I was able to sit and in my relationship, instead of feeling like 911 help, I was able to say, this is you.
Yeah.
And I know this is you, and I want to stop,
right.
and I want to say thank you, and I want to honor this moment of my faith, that in the good, I am thanking you.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, when we talk about gratitude journals and we talk about saying what we're thankful for, as it pertains to my faith, that's what that means to me.
100%.
Like, I'm not saying I'm thankful for my home because we did it. I'm saying I am thankful for the following, because I know that in my faith and with my relationship with Jesus, that this is you. This involves you.
Right.
Now, with that, has there been disappointment? Yes. I feel like we don't talk about when we're disappointed in Jesus enough, because there are times we are disappointed. There are times that I think we can look around and say, hey, were you not here when this happened?
100%.
Like, why didn't you stop this? Why didn't you make this different?
Right.
Why didn't you do something to so this could be avoided? You know, I've known people who were so strong in their faith. I've had 2 people that I've known in my lifetime that truly died still believing that God was going to heal their bodies, and he didn't.
Right.
Now, what we could say is, oh yes, he did. He made their bodies whole, and they're in heaven, and they understand it all now. But while they were here, they wanted to be here longer,
Right.
and they believed he was going to heal their bodies, make them whole, and give them more years on earth with their families, and it did not happen.
Right.
How disappointing.
Right.
And how hard to understand.
Yeah.
And I think we should say out loud, I am so disappointed in you, Lord. I don't understand, because I feel that's where he comes into our heart, and he starts to reveal things and dig around and show us things about us that are important to our faith. I think to try to tell God what you think he wants to hear is so silly, because he knows us so completely.
He knows us better than we know ourselves. And I think, you know, the Bible shows us in Psalm with David, David was probably one of the first people to me that just like said what he was thinking and really took it to the Lord.
And he also did really bad things.
He did. And the other thing is that when you were speaking that I was thinking about is in the Bible, there are instances where people say, God, forgive me for my unbelief and strengthen my faith and help me understand and help me believe. I think the complex part about God is we have worked so hard to try to understand him. But if we for me, if I understood the complexities of God, then he's no longer God.
Right.
And so some of that, like, I think humankind will wonder, why do, those questions, why do bad things happen to good people? Why weren't our friends that were so devoted and committed followers of Christ, why weren't they healed on this side of heaven?
Right.
I think we will go to the grave wondering those things,
Yes.
but that's the complexities that make God God.
Yes.
Where we can't wrap our head around all of it.
Yes. And I have come to not like phrases like God knows.
Right.
He knows.
Right.
He's got the, trust him. He knows. Well, you know what? Sometimes that's just not enough.
Right.
Sometimes in the disappointment and in the not knowing, you can say you're mad.
Right. Totally.
Right.
Well, and I think some of those phrases I think we've talked about this before. There's good intention.
Yes.
Because I think if I say to you,
Yes.
if we're in a conversation about Amy passing away,
Yes.
and your frustration, and I said, God knows versus, oh, God knows.
Yes.
God knows.
Yeah. Yes.
God knows your anger.
Yes.
God knows your
Yes.
heartache. Some of it just has to do with how we treat each other and
Right.
how we project
Right.
Jesus on
Right.
each other.
Right.
And I think that for me
Right.
is some of the hurt.
Yes.
Because some of the hurt,
I would agree with that.
I
yes.
think we talked about this with Kelly Brownlee, our pastor friend, the hurt that we experience with Jesus and with church, if we really boil it down, doesn't have to do with Jesus
Yes,
at all.
at all.
It has to do with how we project Jesus onto each other.
Yeah.
And how we
true.
project our ideas of what our faith should look like on each other.
It's true.
And so I think for me, when I have my moments where I feel like I'm not frustrated with the Lord, it's usually frustrated in
With
people
people.
portraying him a certain way that I don't necessarily agree with.
I think that brings up a good point. I think if we're sitting somewhere and we are arguing about what we believe the Bible says about the LGBTQ community and we're
Right.
fighting about that, we are missing a very
point.
very big point of the gospel and of
Absolutely.
Jesus.
Absolutely.
I don't want to fight about it anymore, Matt.
No.
I don't want to argue about it anymore. One of my favorite memories with Amy, and we would laugh about it, is one of our biggest fights. Like we got into some disagreements as friends, but one of our biggest fights, we were both so mad, was over Proverbs. And then after it was said and done, we just thought it was so ironic and so funny that the thing that we fought about in our friendship was over a book of the Bible. and I think it's a good lesson.
Yeah.
I think if that's where you're going to hang your hat with, especially even in friendship, like we need to learn how to disagree and just keep right on going.
100%.
We need to learn how to say, I am affirming, I am not affirming, but still love each other and be
Right.
friends.
Right.
And not disagree over what we say is the answer for the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I don't think it's as black and white as people want to make it. I don't.
Right.
I think it's simple, yes, but I don't think it's like, well, Jesus said this, and so this is how that looks.
Right.
Maybe not.
Right.
Maybe you aren't. Maybe you aren't the expert to know that.
Well, I think for me, when you look at Old Testament, New Testament, so the Old Testament was all about the law. So the 10 Commandments, the laws that were given through the priests, and there was so much guidance over how to live, how to worship,
how to eat.
Yeah, how to eat. I mean, not to be weird, but how women should handle their menstrual cycles. That's in the Bible. All of those things. And then when Jesus came, Jesus, to some degree, don't come in my DMs if you don't agree with this, Jesus threw a lot of that out the window.
Yeah.
And said, my greatest commandment is to love one another.
Right.
And I think sometimes we get hung up on the nuance.
Otherwise, everybody would still be wearing coverings when they pray.
Right. And I think sometimes we can get hung up on the nuance of little things that we want to make a
Right.
decision about.
Right.
And I think, I'm almost 40 years old.
I know.
It's coming up. But the older that I get, Mallory and I say this, is we're getting way more comfortable with the gray areas of our faith.
Yeah, me too.
That I am at a place in my life where I'm comfortable saying, I don't know, but what I do know is that I need to
Yes.
love people.
Yes, that's so good.
I don't know the answer, but what I do know is that that's not how I think people should be
Yes,
treated.
yes.
And I think that the older that I get, the more that I struggle with people that are so firm and outspoken about their faith, maybe on Facebook or shouting it from a rooftop. But then I see them maybe at work,
Right.
maybe in public,
maybe
the
in their
community,
friendships or in their
a
marriages.
friendship
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
but oh wait, whoa, you said all of that
true.
on Facebook or publicly
Yes,
or whatever.
right.
But in the little things, like the
Right.
way that you spoke to me, or
Yeah.
the way that I see you speak to your boss or your
100%,
husband or your
right.
spouse or your children, you're not doing that.
Yeah.
And you might be hearing that and saying, wow, that's really judgmental of you, Matt. But I also do think there's something to be said for just living your faith out and not
Yes.
having to say it
Right,
all. Because
correct.
for me, I would rather be known as someone that loves well and is kind to people and treats people with respect and honor and loves them like Jesus would,
Yes.
than someone that knows how to make these broad brushstroke statements about faith or the Lord
Or
and
politics.
not love people well.
right.
So for me,
Right.
I think it's better in my life, the way that Jesus has impacted my life is he's like, hey, let's talk less about it and let's just live it
Yeah.
out.
Okay. This is the perfect place for me to share a verse that has just been ringing in my head probably for 2 years. And I keep going back to it and back to it and back to it. And I've written it out and I want to read it. And I think that's how we can wrap.
Yeah.
Here it is. And this is out of the Message. I love the Message translation because sometimes it just speaks to me in a very simple way. And so this is out of the Message. And it's Romans 12, 1 and 2. And the title up above the chapter is Place Your Life Before God. So here is what I want you to do. God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life. Your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for Him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what He wants you to do and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings the best out of you, develops well-formed maturity in you. So for me, I just want God in my everyday life to show me what I need to do. I want to quickly do it and respond to it. And I want Him to just keep cultivating maturity in me and helping me love people well and helping me do what I feel He wants me to do. And even that includes how to love people.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
it.
You know, we're not into New Year's resolutions around here, but that in this moment just made me look forward to what this year holds for me.
It's good.
Is that I would give my life to God
Yeah.
to mature it,
Yeah.
to continue to refine it so that He's in control.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was good. That was good for me.
Let's talk about food. Wow, that was a very big jump.
That was
just
big.
Now. That was big.
That was big.
I want to know what you're doing with food right now. Right now, I mean, Christmas, we're here.
Well, I'm going to be
What's
really,
happening?
really honest with
Okay,
you.
I want to hear it.
When you came to my home,
Yes.
I was eating leftover cold
Yes.
lo mein.
That is true.
Prior to that, I was eating Christmas cookies. So there's not a lot happening. We're foraging.
Yes.
We're
okay.
eating what's on the counter.
Okay, yeah, all right.
But here's what I will say. We have some big events coming up.
Yes.
We're recording this on December 23rd.
Yes.
The next few days, the next week are full of events with food and with
Yes,
family
yes,
and with
yes.
fun. All the F words except the one.
The bad one, except for the bad one.
Oh, in the Jesus episode. What I love about us is we just pop in and out. We just pop off Queen, But here's what I was thinking about with Walnut Creek Foods right now. We're at the end of the year.
Yes.
Where I don't know about y'all, but we kind of do a little reassessment. New gifts come in the house, old things go out.
Yeah, that's good.
We start looking ahead to what we need. And I was thinking about how Walnut Creek cheese, if you are in a place of reorganizing, or, if you are a New Year's resolution person,
Okay.
and I affirm that for you,
Okay.
Walnut Creek Cheese and Market in Walnut Creek, Ohio, has a really great kitchen store to help you
they
get
do.
organized, to
They
help
do.
you.
They carry Vitamix. They carry
Yes.
Bosch mixers.
I love a good Bosch.
Bosch mixers. They carry Lodge, the iron skillets.
Enamel.
They
yep.
carry OXO. They carry a lot of really great brands
Yeah.
and a lot of gadgets.
Yes.
It's really a great place.
So I know this is the time of year for us where we take stock of like, okay, we gotta don't tell Remy, but she's getting a Barbie dream house for Christmas.
That's awesome.
It's the only thing she asked for, and we're taking
I
stock.
kind of want one too.
Well, listen, you might need to wait till next Black Friday. We're kind of taking stock of what's in our house right now. So
Yeah.
I think if you're in that mode where you're like, oh, I need to kind of reorganize my kitchen or reorganize this, Walnut Creek Cheese and Market in Walnut Creek has some great organizing
kitchenwares.
tools,
They do.
kitchenwares to help you. And listen, if you got a gift card to Walnut Creek Cheese and Market, I hope you did. That's a great place to buy
Yeah,
some of those
it
little
is.
appliances that maybe you've been thinking
Okay,
about.
let me tell you real quick what is on my mind with Walnut Creek Cheese and Market right now is their fresh deli, great lunch meats, great
Wonderful.
cheeses. I am making the poppy seed sticky buns.
Love 'em.
We're doing soup and salad with Amish Christmas, and they have the best off the bone ham. They kind of have a brown sugarly mapley one that's kind of sweet, and then they have a double smoked one, layered on like really good dinner rolls with their Swiss cheese, which they carry just a mild Swiss cheese that's the square. You can get it sliced in any thickness you want.
That's
Put
right.
that on, and then you just pour all that poppy seed sticky
It's
honey.
like honey
It's
mustard.
good.
It's so good.
So good. And then you bake them, and they're just all melty and
I love that.
delicious. Yeah.
That's so good.
We want to just take this opportunity to say thank you to Walnut Creek Cheese and Market and Walnut Creek Foods. We are so grateful for our relationship with them, but we are so grateful that we can truly talk about them and truly represent them in a way that is authentic and true, because we really do love them.
Listen, this is what I love about them being our sponsor the most.
Oh, yeah.
Is this wasn't like some Instagram ad that we were like, hey, can
No.
you be our sponsor?
We ain't pretending up here.
No, there's no faking. So yes, we love Walnut Creek Cheese and Market.
do.
Again, if you don't have Walnut Creek, if you're not within driving distance where you're like, I
Right.
can make a trip to Ohio, we have listeners literally all around
Everywhere,
all around the world. We have people in Australia. We have people. I don't know where they ship. So if you're in
No, I don't
Australia,
know
don't
that.
come at me.
Yeah, I don't know that.
But here's what I can say. If you're around the country for around the United States, you can go to Walnut Creek Cheese or Walnut Creek Foods rather and put in the store locator to see a store in
Yeah.
your area that carries some of their
it.
products. So
Listen, Walnut Creek Cheese, Walnut Creek Foods, we are so glad you are listening.
yes. Hey, well, thank you so much and joining us in this conversation all about Jesus and for sticking with us. Because if I'm being honest, this is something very personal to me, and it's a personal thing to talk about.
Yeah.
And I think after going through this, the last 43 minutes of talking about Jesus, this isn't going to be my last time.
No.
I think
Yeah.
he's going to come up next
Yeah,
year.
I think so too.
Awesome. Hey, well, whether ordinary or extraordinary, we hope you see that these are good days.
This episode brought to you by Walnut Creek Foods.